Welcome back to Girl Take the Lead, the podcast where we dive into real, raw, and remarkable stories of people breaking cycles, finding freedom, and leading with courage. Today's guest is Amy Weinland-Daughters, a keynote speaker, satirist, and author whose work explores memory, connection, and the surprising power of handwritten letters. Amy has written both fiction and nonfiction, but her stories share a common theme: the ways we can heal, grow, and rediscover ourselves when we slow down and truly pay attention. In her novel, You Cannot Mess This Up, she travels time back to 1978 to revisit her 10-year-old self and her family with the wiser eyes of adulthood. What began as a humorous, nostalgic trip became a deeply cathartic journey about memory, forgiveness, and honoring our inner child. Her nonfiction book, Dear Dana, grew from a single supportive card to a friend into 600 handwritten letters that reconnected her with people across decades, opened up conversations across divides, and changed the entire trajectory of her life. In today's episode, we dive into what memories are malleable and how revisiting them can be healing, what our 10-year-old selves can teach us about courage and authenticity, in addition to our 20 something self, and one handwritten letter can spark connection and ripple outward. Let's jump in. Here you go. Amy, welcome to Girl Take the Lead. We're so excited to have you here. And thanks for your patience as my dog gets taken care of.
No, it's wonderful to be here, Yo. I'm just super excited and honored to be a part of your program.
Thank you. Can you start by introducing yourself to our audience?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Amy Weinland-Daughters, and I'm an author and speaker and writer and mom. That covers all my important bases.
Very good. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your books? Because I know you have fiction and nonfiction books, but tell us about them.
Right, my fictional book is a book where I write myself back in time to my childhood. And the premise is I'm flying home in real life to discuss, some issues about my parents' estate who are still living at the time of the story. And then in the air, somehow I go back to 1978. And this pilot, this time travel guide who's familiar character in my own life, she drives me to my childhood home outside of Houston, Texas, and says, "It's 1978, it's Thanksgiving, get out of the car. They think you're a distant cousin from Ohio. I'll come pick you up in 36 hours." And so I meant it to be like super humorous, nostalgic, entertaining back in time. But once I wrote myself back in time and was the same age as my parents, and then watched my child self and my brother and sister as a person with eyes and 40 more years of life experience, and as a mom and as a wife and all those things, I realized that, oh my gosh, this was going to be about my feelings, and it turned out to be a catharsis without me ever meaning it to. And so I
Mm.
started writing that book one person and came out the other side a whole nother person.
And that's the You Cannot Mess, right?
Yeah,
That's
this you cannot mess this up. And my favorite is the subtitle, "A True Story That Never Happened."
it's just so great. And I think when you're talking about some of it, how, you know, maybe healing and cathartic it was going back in that time, and you talk about memories, especially. What's your reflection now on memories, given that you've written this and experienced this book?
Right. Well, I think what I didn't realize is memories are malleable. And I think as human beings, I think we understand that. But if we really reflect on that, I watched myself in this pretend story where I feel like it happened in my head and my heart. And I watched my 10-year-old self, and I knew I was writing about her memories, our memories. And I realized if I would have been who I am now, my memories would have been totally different. And I think you used the line because I wrote this down earlier. Stories, memories are stories we make up,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
I think they're malleable. And there's something so healing in that because a lot of people get left off the hook. My parents get taken off the hook. My child self gets taken off the hook when I realized that we were all just trying to do the best we could, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, and I also think we talked a little bit too about our inner child that gets healed when we think about some of the memories because we think we have it figured out, but actually happened.
Right.
And it's an interpretation that we had, or, some reflection we had, not necessarily a fact.
Right. And it's based on who we are in the moment, what the moment's like, and it's impossible to completely unpack. And of course, I think there is a truth in it. And the truth is in the time the memory was made, that was a truth. But
Mhm.
but that truth is a moving target. It's a shifting thing. But I think there's so much hope in that because we're not anchored to these memories. They're not anchors. And I meant to write a funny back in time book, and I'm not. I think it's a good book, but I think the process of talking about it, there's something profoundly, potentially healing and just exploring that concept within your own life story, that
Yeah.
those memories, we're not anchored to these memories. We can go and reinvestigate them and re-explore and not shift a truth or change a fact, but change a perception.
Yes. Yes. Because I think that perception, we can forget that it was an 11-year-old making that interpretation versus looking at it with the lens we have today. That must have been part of your writing because here you are, you're going back in time with a certain reflection that you didn't have then and
Right.
being able to so what did you see there? Like how did you write her in a way that reflected that?
Well, I wrote her because it was great because as I was watching my mother in 1978, as I was watching myself in 1978, I wrote it just the way I saw it. I was like, oh my gosh, wait a second. This is totally different than what I thought it was. And look at mom in 1978 without the internet, just trying to do the best she could without the opportunities I have as a woman,
Mhm.
without, and really, the way, I was like a lot of people, I had issues with my mom, but she actually is one of the reasons she built me up to be the woman who was not afraid to go do some of the things I did. And I saw that. And then I watched my 10-year-old self, and if there would have been ADHD medicine in 1978, little Amy should have been on it. And I was so taken aback by her. And that's a complete reaction. I watched videos of myself, like the 8 millimeter film my dad took. And there was
Mhm.
this one snippet of me dancing around in this medieval costume for a play I was in at school. I was leaping around in people's faces and I was like just alarmed and I was completely like, "Oh my god, she's got to stop." But and so that was those were all natural reactions to me imagining the whole situation. But that's where I learned so much.
Yeah. And what do you think you learned from her as you were writing her?
Well, she went from being, and that's a great question, because she went from being someone I was uncomfortable with, even writing about and looking back at all the pictures and the videos and the memories and talking to my brother and sister and my parents. She went from being, oh my gosh, you're like ruining my golden moment back in time. But by the end of the story, I was like, wait a second. I went from wanting to run away from her to I wanted to be more like her because I realized that I had lived, not purposefully, some of the best parts of us away. And I think one of my favorite personal outcomes of writing the story is now I want to live the rest of my life honoring the little girl with the bowl cut because she's the best part of us. And I just hope she's proud of what happened, what's happened since or
Yeah.
next or however you want to frame that.
Yeah. Cuz 10, I mean, I think about me at 10 and I kind of remember wanting to fit in,
Right.
and having some leadership qualities but perplexed by them. Like
Right.
how did that happen? Um and also, Campfire Girls played a big role in my life at that point and seeing other women and what they were up to was amazing to me. Like I I was taken by the power of other women, I think, at that time.
Right.
So my
And
story would be kind of like yours in a way, like what we could learn from that 10-year-old girl who was fearless.
and that's one of the things I like about my own little self is she was fearless, and though she was starting to figure out that she needed to fit into the bigger world, there was a part of her that just was like, this is who I am, let's go. And I think that she made me realize I still have that, even though I'm more scared than I was, you
Uh-huh.
know, then. But I think everything you just said is what I'm most proud of with that story, is because that it gives people just a launch pad to say, what would this look like for me? And there be something good come out of that. And I think that one of the major takeaways is our real lives, my little suburban life in Houston, Texas in the late 70s is not something that's going to be on the Oprah show or Today's show, but it matters. It matters enough to really sit back and think about it. Each of our real lives matter profoundly. And it does not matter how many likes we get on social media. It doesn't, none of that matters. It matters enough to have this conversation with a trusted friend, with ourselves.
Ah, so well said, because I think sometimes we think that our voice and what we have to say doesn't matter. And what I've learned doing the podcast is that, God, everybody's voice matters.
Oh,
Everybody. Everybody has great things to say. It's
right. And we all have something we can learn from each other. And I think we live in a culture, especially right now, where there's like a blueprint on here's how we're supposed to do it, whatever it is. But I truly believe that all of us have something great inside of us, that if we would just believe ourselves enough to take one step forward and encourage, especially women, other women to do the same thing, this whole
Mhm,
world will be a different place.
mhm, right. I guess the cultural norms, we were talking a little bit previously about this, how in the decades we grew up in have shifted so much. And I think there's still some important things to consider from our decades that we grew up in. Like what are things that you look back now and you go, that was pretty good how we did that.
Right. And I think that's a great way to frame it. And I did a lot of research for this book, and that was probably my favorite part of doing it because I went back and read magazines and newspapers and watched clips and watched TV shows and watched a lot of stuff. And I think that the first thing you would do when you approach that question is to say things like, women have come so far, the obvious things. But to your question, which is even a better question, what things did we do better in the late 70s or the 70s? And I think that it we were slowed down. Without the internet, we were more thoughtful in our approach to each other, but because we had to be, not because we were better people. It was a more slowed down approach because everything wasn't instantaneous, given us right
Mm,
way. So our appreciation of things, of small things, may have been greater. I think that question would be great to ask like somebody my mother's age, because I was a 10-year-old kid, and what I found out is what I remembered, a lot of big things that happened in the world that I was tuned out on because I was 10. I was playing tetherball. But I can see as an adult now looking back, there was a different pace to information, to communication, and there was a lot more. We were forced to do it in person, actually making telephone calls,
yeah.
actually going to visit each other, writing letters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think too, what I've learned along the way is that digital communication takes care of a few of our senses, but when we're in person communicating, it's all of our senses are present.
Right.
And we had that, I think, um definitely it was much, much slower, although we thought we were going pretty fast.
Oh, and that's the thing about a time period is, in the late 1800s, they thought they were moving, they had the train come in and they're like, look at us.
Right.
And that's why it's really, and I think that's one thing that history teaches us. If we put the expectations of someone in 1978 on ourselves now and then judge people in either group, that's I just don't think that's fair. You know,
Yeah.
it's like the brutality of the Middle Ages. And looking back and saying those people were brutal. That was the time they lived in. And so
Yeah.
people can't be. I mean, there is a right and wrong. There is a moral compass that's undeniable at any time period. But I'm just saying, it's hard. You can't really judge people on 2025 standards all through history.
No. Um, One thing that I see repeating, and I'm not quite sure I have this laid out too well, but rebellion seems to be, and discord um, are still expressions that we had in the 70s. Didn't do them so much in the 80s and the 90s, but it seemed like we had the war in Vietnam, and there was like great music that came out of that, and we were protesting, and there was definitely women's rights during that period of time. And then it seemed like we coasted for a while, and now we're like back to this time in our life. And I think because we've gone through it, we can almost be a sense of wisdom and reason for younger generations to say, yeah, things will look like this, but they'll change.
And you know what? That might be one of the most powerful things I've ever heard anybody say, and a message that needs to be spread right now, because you're right. All the passion that came out of, and all the good things in the art and the music, and but that's all based on how passionate people feel about what's going on and how hopeless we
Yeah.
feel about what's going on. That's all drawn out. But I think that lesson is, you're exactly right. This is not pretty, but we are going to get through this.
Yeah.
And the things that we're going to learn about ourselves and each other. But this is what change looks like, though.
Yeah. It's messy.
It's so
And
messy.
it's never permanent. I think that's the other thing too, is um, we kind of get through it, and then the 80s came, and then the 90s came. Now,
Right.
it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, we can see some things going on. And I don't know, that's what I kind of feel with my podcast, that it's important to have different generational perspectives for people, because there isn't one way to interpret everything.
Right. And I love that, how you have that on your website with your daughters. Uh, and I actually went down. I'm fascinated by this kind of thing. So I went back and wrote for myself, like, all the what we call all the generations, and made sure I had the years right. And because I was
Mhm.
just fascinated, I knew it, but I hadn't really sat down and like applied that to different areas of my own experience. So I
Yeah.
think that's a fresh, but also very relatable and non, like, you're not. There's no divisiveness in that. It's just a
Yeah.
core thing, and we're all in groups. Also, it's almost unifying, though. You know,
Yeah. Well, and the what I've loved seeing, and now I'm learning myself around poor Gen Alpha coming along, and they're like, oh my
yeah,
God, you
yeah,
just want to go, oh, Gen Alpha, my God.
yeah.
We're gonna we're gonna be busy helping you along, because it's gonna be pretty difficult to navigate.
It is.
Uh, well, tell us a little bit about the nonfiction book and the 600 handwritten letters that you
Yeah.
wrote.
And that's an amazing journey, though, that I went on, that I did not intentionally go on. And it really segues really from that conversation we just had. I was minding my own business, writing, and I got on social media one day, looked up an old friend that I had worked at a summer camp with 30 something years ago. We worked probably 6 weeks together, me and this girl named Dana. And I don't really remember much, except we were both loud and thought we were funny. So that resonated with each other. And she was one of those people who her name would pop in my head every once in a while. So I go on Facebook that day, I type her name in, voila, there she is. I friend her, she accepts, because that doesn't require any commitment on anybody's part. We're just going to hang out with the pictures. And so I go look through her life right away. I figure out she has 5 kids, so she overachieves. 4 girls and 1 boy. And right away, I find out that the boy has cancer.
Oh.
He's at St. Jude in Memphis, Tennessee, so that means it's serious. Um, so of course, as a mother, as a human being, as a person, it resonates deeply as the worst case scenario for all the rest of us. So I
Mhm.
start following along, and she's very honest, and she says a lot, and so I follow along and become invested in these people's story. I never hit like, I never hit comment, because I felt like as serious it was, that'd be disingenuous. I'm this girl from 35 years ago who was loud. And so he goes into remission, and then later that same year, the cancer's back. They're back in Memphis. And I'm like, God, this is horrible. And so I sit down at my desk one Monday morning thinking about him. And it was like I got hit by a lightning bolt in the head. I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start. I just felt like I should do something. I'm going to start sending them notes, like little supportive cards to the Ronald McDonald House in Memphis. Now, still hadn't had any contact with her in 34 years, probably. I'd never met the son or any of the other people. And I hadn't written anyone a handwritten note in 25 years. I grew up like a lot of us did, handwriting letters and cards and notes, all that stuff. But it's not like I was the letter writing lady coming into the story. I was
Mhm.
just minding my own business. So I start sending these notes, and I did tell myself, I was like, this is kind of crazy because she may not even remember who you are, and they're fighting cancer. But I was like, it's meant with goodwill, so I'll just do it. And I felt invested in a way that made no sense for sure. So I write them for about 10 to 12 weeks. I was on a writing schedule. So I'd write the card on Sunday and mail it on Monday. I never heard anything, did not expect to hear anything, but then you see her posts start to change, and it's not going well in Memphis.
Mhm.
And so, and there's no good words for this. Parker passes away at 15 years old. And I knew it had nothing to do with me. I sent a condolence card. But I sat down again on a Monday morning. And I was like, mini lightning bolt, I'm just going to keep writing these letters. And I knew I was a rock solid sure this was insanity, but couldn't stop myself. But then I was like, where do I mail these letters? It's Facebook. I don't have her address. Oh, wait, her husband's an attorney. I can just send them there because I'm nuts. I'm nutso, you know, totally nutso. So I keep sending the letters week after week. And the whole time I'm honestly thinking, this is crazy, but I couldn't stop. And so it started out being these short notes. And then I just started writing about my life because I was like, why not?
Mhm.
Filling in the blanks. And I can only imagine what she was thinking at the other end. But after 5 months, I go to my mailbox on my birthday, hoping maybe my mother sent me a card. And on top of my mail is a 10-page handwritten letter from this girl, Dana.
Oh my God, I'm going to start crying in a minute.
And it was one of the greatest moments of my life because she
Mhm.
wrote me back. And her letter was thanking me for my letters. And then she just started talking about her kids, and she started talking about her grief. And at the end of that first letter, she said, I didn't know I was going to say any of that, but I feel good saying it. And
Mhm.
so this kicked off, 2 years of me and this woman uh, writing each other back and forth. We were pen pals, modern age pen pals. We didn't call each other. We didn't exchange phone numbers till way later in the 2 years. We didn't email. We just sent the letters. And I have no idea when she's reading what I wrote. She has no idea if or when I'm reading it. There's no one sitting in front of me waiting for a response. I don't know. I don't have the red sign on my text. So I could say whatever I wanted to. For me, it was cathartic. I was writing about my life from the outside in, introducing this stranger to who I was and what I did. And I reordered all kinds of stuff in my life. My relationships improved, I feel like. She wrote about her grief. She said after the fact that if everybody was seemed like they were doing okay, she would write to me about the grief. And we
Mhm.
trusted each other because like blindly, we would say stuff. Oh, I've never told anybody this before, but I know I can trust you. I mean, who
Yeah.
does that? And then the best part really was I didn't know how she voted. I didn't know what her socioeconomic level was. I didn't know what she believed in or didn't believe in. And I didn't care because all I knew was I cared about this person who I'd open up to, who would open up to me, this very tactile, intimate, non intrusive relationship. And it really changed my perspective on so many things in my life. And I was so overwhelmed that this could happen with this one random girl from this list of
Mhm.
hundreds of people, that after about 8 months, I sat back and I said, if this much good can come out of this one girl, like what about the hundreds of other people that I know to differing degrees? So then I went all world crazy. I I bought stationery. I put everyone's name in a box, and I was like, and I got a journal. I was like, I'm going to write every single one of these people. Now, I did not actually think I was going to write every one of these people. I thought this is fun. I'll do it, and I'll see when I'm ready to stop. But I got to about letter 25, and I was like, this is going to change my life. This is going to be the most important thing I ever did. And it impacted me in a way that it changed the entire trajectory of my life. Now I'm the letter writing lady. I cannot shut up about it. I speak about it. I wrote a book about it. And it just absolutely, this little tool we have in our human toolkits is absolutely off the chain powerful. Just a little handwritten note.
Wow. I'm really moved for you. I really think that's such a strong connection for people that we're looking for today.
Oh, we are. And that's what why people's reaction was so strong. And I was so shocked by this, because I didn't understand what this was going to do. I was not trying to do something great. I had such this experience with the Dana person that I felt like there was something more to it. But when you send someone a handwritten note, it does not have to be a letter, in 2025, they are going to understand the individual effort and sacrifice it took on your part. Like you got to
Mhm.
find envelopes, you got to have a note card or something, you got to find a pen. Wait, my hand hurts. You have to say something. If it's sincere and heartfelt, all the better. And then you have to find an address. You have to seal the envelope. Wait, where are the stamps? Now I have to drive somewhere to mail this thing. And so when they get to the mailbox and they pull this out amidst all this junk is going to be your note. They pull it out. They're like, wait a second. This is how much I matter to another person, me, just me,
Mhm.
individually. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, there's no doubt on their part that they are valued that much. And boom, it's a game changer.
It definitely is. So I would be so honored if you would read something from that book, one of the letters that maybe touches you the most, not the most, but just that you want to share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And the book was hard to write because of all those letters. I had to pick just a few that, because they all meant something to me, which is not hard to imagine. But anyway, just this girl, she was letter 579, but she was a girl I went to high school with. And I was pretty sure, well, I was knew from her Facebook posts that we weren't on the same page about a lot of things. We were on the other side of that chasm that has been created for us to stand and scream across. And, uh, and so, and I knew that coming into it. So here's just a snippet of my letter to her. I appreciate very much being your friend on Facebook and being reconnected. I'm especially glad of the timing that we wrote out the last election cycle together. Though I didn't agree with every one of your posts or views, I do respect so very much your passion and insight. In fact, I felt like I learned so much from you throughout last year. I am now a woman without a side politically, much of because I don't want to be affiliated with hate and fear. I want you to know that your posts help me to see things differently. I think you are incredibly brave, especially given the tight box we all grew up in. And I love how you're willing always to take a firm stand on either side of an issue, regardless of where your side stands on it. I hope you know that you're making a difference, despite how many likes your post gets or who says what. I'm glad we're friends, and I'm glad we're different. It's what makes the world better, and it's how change really begins.
Mm.
So I 100% did not expect to hear back from her, but that was the case with this project. Was I heard from a lot of people who I would have said that about, and this is somebody I hadn't spoken to in, 35, 40 years. And here's a snippet of her response to me, which was via handwritten card. Hey, Amy, sorry it's taken me a while to write back. I really want to thank you for your words to me about Facebook. While I can see both sides of it, good and bad, I do think it has the potential to help us see each other more fully and to hear and consider the views and experiences of people we know, but maybe don't really understand. I am filled with hope and optimism when I hear from people like you. I'm also really taken by your effort to get back to pen and paper, especially when I realized I don't even have stationery anymore. Take care of yourself. Thank you. Stay in touch.
Mm. Lovely. I'm
So again,
sorry.
two people. If I saw her now, if I would have seen her before the letter writing, I'm not saying I'm not a divisive person. I would have said something to her. But now, if I saw her in person, I would give her the biggest hug and care so much less about whatever we thought that separates us, because it
Mm.
doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, so beautifully said. So, Amy, how can our listeners and viewers find you, follow you, and get your books?
Right. amydaughters.com has the links to my socials, my email, the books, the whole story. And then, best of all, my mailing address. So I guarantee if anyone mails me a little note, I will absolutely write them back.
That's so great. So I know we've talked a little bit about your 10-year-old self, but what would you tell your 20 something self today?
Well, I think I would absolutely tell her to, you know, to trust her gut, to trust, the things that she has on her head, to take bold steps forward and not to be afraid of the other voice inside of her head telling her, shutting her down. And I would tell her to bring that voice out and try to bring it out in the people around her.
So nice. Well, Amy, I'm thinking, are you still writing to people and keeping connected to all the folks that you wrote to?
Well, that's a great question. And I thought when I wrote letter 580 that I was going to like be out and never write another letter. But as it turns out, it was probably the best it took me 18 months to write all those letters. That was the best version of me. And I realized that it's a way to spread the hope, like you said, that it's something we're looking for. So I have a little journal by my on my desk. And if I see on Facebook or in real life that, there's a congratulations due to someone or a I'm sorry or a support, then I put their name in the book. So every morning, my first thing I do when I sit at my desk is I write someone a card, a short
Mm.
7 line, note, and just expressing something because it honors the story. It's not just that; it's almost adrenaline. Like I cannot stop doing it because it is the best thing I'll ever do.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be my pleasure. I'm going to send you a little collection of cards so that you can pass those along to the people you're writing to, because that would be my pleasure to do that for you.
What an honor! What I mean, so generous, and I love the way it links us together, and then it
Yeah.
spreads goodness out, and it's almost. I mean, that makes me want to cry, and I don't believe in crying.
Well, thanks, Amy, so much for joining us today. We were very heartfelt with each other. Thanks.
100%. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Amy's story reminds us that the past isn't fixed. It's something we can revisit, reinterpret, and even heal. And in a world of texts and likes, a handwritten note can still change a life. If Amy's journey inspired you, I'd love for you to leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. Reviews help more people discover Girl Take the Lead and join our growing community of women raising their voices and leading with heart. And if you know someone who could use a reminder that their story matters, or that small acts of kindness create powerful ripples, send them this episode. Amy's words might be exactly what they need to hear. Don't forget, you can connect with Amy and her books at amydaughters.com. And if you feel inspired to start writing notes yourself, check out the Girl Take the Lead heartfelt cards and gift shop because sometimes the right card can say exactly what's in your heart. A few of my favorite quotes from Amy. A handwritten note says, "You matter this much to me, just you." And the best version of me showed up when I was writing those letters. Here are 3 key takeaways from today's episode. 1, revisiting memories through new eyes can soften judgment and spark healing. Small, intentional acts, like a note in the mail, remind others they are valued. And 3, connection across divides is possible when we lead with curiosity and care. Coming up next week on Girl Take the Lead, we'll be joined by Alyssa Calvert, author of We Got This. She's a stage 4 metastatic breast cancer thriver, nonprofit founder, and advocate for reimagining how we support one another through life's hardest challenges. Alyssa shares how her diagnosis just before her daughter's first birthday reshaped her perspective on life, grief, and community, and how it led to her mission of normalizing support through her groundbreaking nonprofit registry. lead with courage, and remember,